Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436. 580-KIDO. We are here, locked, loaded, stacked, and packed, ready to go. Coming up, the Stop Socialism Express continues. We'll get to Dave Petzo coming up and take your phone calls, inviting you to join the conversation at 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
A man recently sentenced to probation for a deadly drunken driving crash in Eagle is back in jail tonight. Adam Paulson was convicted of vehicular manslaughter last November, about 1 year after police say he struck 24-year-old Madeline Dusky with his pickup as Dusky was crossing Eagle Road. She died at the hospital. Paulson spent 14 months in jail while awaiting trial. Then in January, Judge Deborah Bale handed down a sentence of 15 years probation and a suspended 15-year prison sentence. She also ordered that Paulson not purchase, possess, or consume alcoholic beverages as a condition of his probation. Court documents we obtained late this afternoon show he was arrested today for violating probation last month. According to the motion for a bench warrant, Paulson drank alcohol on February 13th and repeatedly tampered with the device that monitors his blood alcohol level. Madeline Dusky's parents, her mother, spoke to us back in January about the judge's decision to give Paulson probation rather than any more jail or prison time.
I don't feel angry. I feel like I'm concerned about the community. Just him, coming to the table with, asking for a plea bargain would have made a huge difference for us as a family. I was fixed to feeling like him going to prison for a little while would be, good for his soul, good for him to, reflect upon what he did.
As part of Judge Bale's sentencing in January, Paulson was also required to perform 500 hours of community service and to pay child support for Dusky's 2 children until their 18th birthdays.
And there you have it, our friend Dee Sarton from Channel 7 breaking the story down for us. So here we have a man, Mr. Paulson, who got the break of a lifetime. And maybe you know Mr. Paulson. This is a small community. Maybe you know the victim. Maybe you know her kids. Maybe you know the people that have been impacted by this. And this should scare the heck out of all of us that are on the roads. And remember when Mr. Paulson was appealing his conviction, saying that according to researchers, that even if he were sober, he still would have hit that young mother of 2. That even if he were sober, it couldn't have been avoided on Eagle Road because the victim was wearing dark clothes. There comes a point in our lives when we have to take responsibility for our actions. Let's hope, and because we live in America, because this is the Kevin Miller Show, we can say on the radio, at least for now, let's hope and pray that Mr. Paulson gets the help that he so desperately needs. And here you have the mother of the victim, the grandmother of her kids, saying maybe he should have just plea bargained it out. It would have saved him a lot of money with attorney's fees, and it would have saved the community a lot of angst. So you get the break of a lifetime. You get time served. Now you have to pay child support for the children whose mother you were convicted of killing via vehicular manslaughter, and then you have enough gall to seek to get that conviction overturned. This guy's only 43 years old. 43 years old. Destroyed the life of a 24-year-old Maddie Dusky, accused of violating probation less than 2 months after getting the sentence. And remember, our friends at Channel 7 reported that the court documents show that Paulson is accused of tampering with his ankle monitor that measures his blood alcohol content. And remember, in America, especially on the Kevin Miller Show, you're innocent until proven guilty. Now, he'll be arraigned. And what do you think is going to happen there? Now, with all due respect, shame on the judge. And from what I understand, we have a friend of ours that has dealt with this judge, said she's a good judge. But the idea of getting time served, with all due respect to Mr. Paulson, it appears that he has not learned his lesson. And to the judge that gave him the slap on the wrist, it's time to take a look at that sentence again. And instead of time served, it's time now for Mr. Paulson to do some time. And it shows you that driving is not a right, it's a privilege. My goodness gracious, we have people that were almost celebrating, their 60th or 61st anniversary, killed. We have people on Black Cat Road in Meridian, truck on truck, boom. Did we ever figure out what caused that accident that cost so many lives? It's crazy. I wish we could give everybody a chill pill. This morning, I don't know about you, tailgate Timmy, because I didn't speed up fast enough following a red light. In the parking lot of Fred Meyer on Sunday, some guy almost rear-ends me because I'm not going from 0 to 60 when I'm getting on Linder Road. Never mind, there's a car in front of me going 40 miles per hour. Now, perhaps you can say, well, Kevin Miller, you may be only such and such, but you drive like a grandmother. Well, you don't hear many grandmothers causing these accidents. But the broader question here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, Mr. Paulson could serve 5 years and he'd be out before he was 50. If these allegations, and again, allegations are true, then he should be held accountable. If they're false, then so be it. But if they're true, then it is very obvious that Mr. Paulson did not learn his lesson. It is very obvious that apparently, according to court documents, his defense made him destitute, that he could not have a place to live, that his condition does not allow him to get a job. Well, allegedly messing with your ankle monitor, with your monitor that monitors your blood alcohol, does not win you any critics outside the arena. So at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, your thoughts pertaining to Mr. Paulson. I believe that the judge was wrong, and we'll say it, whether it's Judge Windmill or the judge in this case, the judge was wrong. Because in America, unlike in the liberal states outside of Idaho, you're allowed to say that judges are wrong, that they make mistakes. They're not without criticism, even though some of them have lifetime appointments. They're not without criticism. And you don't let somebody who is convicted of vehicular manslaughter get time served. They haven't learned their lesson. And it may cause us to take a look at our entire criminal justice system, whether it's the people being, in Idaho serving time in Texas, whether it's the people that are in jail right now, whether or not we are accurately reflecting the needs and responsibilities, the rehabilitation versus punishment that we so often overlook when we throw people in the pokey or we let people out that shouldn't be out on the streets. And let's hope that it doesn't come to roost for any of our loved ones, right? But again, Mr. Paulson, as I said, deserves to do some time. Let's hope and pray that he does. That's number one. Number two, thanks to Rocky Barker of The Statesman, Idaho lawmakers hold first climate change hearing, and no one argued about its existence or its causes. This is another thing that I don't understand. Why Republicans are squishy and say that climate change is happening. Can anybody give me legitimate evidence that climate change is here? Well, we've got the polar ice caps. Really? We've had the coldest winter on record in Chicago and throughout most of the country. Ask our friends in Seattle. Ask our friends in Seattle when they're buried with snow, not rain, with snow, whether or not they believe in climate change. See, that's always my argument. We've had a record amount of rain and snow in the state of California, a record amount of snow in Idaho. How can you say that climate change is here? But again, from Rocky Barker, reporter emeritus, Idaho lawmakers held their first official hearing about climate change, and no one argued about its existence or causes. Now, here's another one with this. Just because Bill Nye, the science guy, says it's true, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. The House Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee last Wednesday carefully scripted through negotiations between Republicans and Democrats represented a new phase in the evolving transformation of beliefs. The impact changes of climate on Idaho are not new to residents who now annually suffer through smoke season in the summer. I'm sorry, don't we suffer from smoke season because we haven't managed our timber effectively like we did in the day? Climate change isn't new to residents who in early March flocked to early spring runoffs that show why Shoshone Falls on the Snake River at Twin Falls is the Niagara of the West. Well, take a look at our snowpack this year. So again, you can make your case for anything. I'm not too comfortable with the Republicans drinking the Democratic Kool-Aid on climate change. Are you? Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. Let's start with Mr. Paulson. Now, in many other countries of the world, you know, we're the best country in the world, but it doesn't mean we can't take a page out of somebody else's book. Why don't we have set sentencing guidelines that a judge is not allowed to go beyond? Had we had such a thing, Mr. Paulson wouldn't have cost us the money of going out to his house and arresting him for messing with his ankle bracelet. He would have gone to prison the first time. The judge would not have been allowed to give such an insanely lenient sentence.
Well, if you have those standards, then why in the world would you have judges?
The judges are there to basically to watch what's happening, keep an eye on it, make sure the prosecutors and defense attorneys don't go off the ranch, and make sure that the jurors are properly informed, properly cared for. And again, guidelines. Example, maybe the book says 8 to 15 years, 10 to 20 years. The judge can stay within those guidelines and say, okay, look, I think you're a nice guy. You didn't mean so bad. Let's give you 8 years. Can't give you less. Or the judge may say, you terrible person, I'm going to give you 10 years. Guidelines.
Well, here's another thing, though. Who's to say that a judge couldn't say time served, as this judge did?
Well, again, if there were sentencing guidelines, the judge couldn't do that. There'd be something. All right, I'm speaking because I have a specific hatred that burns deep in my heart for drunk drivers. I just do. You're taking a loaded gun into a Walmart and firing shots randomly. It's the same thing. A guideline for vehicular manslaughter, if intoxicated, should be a minimum 20 to life. And the judge can decide 20 or something in between 20 and life. And let life mean life till your ticker stops ticking. We give judges way too much power. And when you appoint one for life, remember, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Hey, listen to your good show this morning. Keep up the good work. And as far as climate change...
And what do you make of that?
What a bunch of garbage. I remember once hearing somebody on TV, I think it was Bill Nye, the wise guy, and he said, these heavy snowfalls are evidence of global warming. And he tried to explain how a warmer climate made for a lot more snow. And I'm not a scientist, I'm a doctor, that's all. But I'm not ignorant of basic science. And listening to this rubbish he was spitting out of his mouth, I thought, oh, Lord, how many people are buying this? Even Bill knows he's talking crud, but Bill needs to keep his job, so he has to go with the flow, or the networks are going to call him a denier and kick him out in the street. What else could this guy do besides flip burgers somewhere?
Hey, now you're hitting close to home. Thanks, Hank. Or thanks,
okay.
Thanks, Max. I got Hank on my mind.
Hank, you got it, buddy. Take care.
All right. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, something that Tea Party Bob and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can agree on. Plus more of your calls. Are you comfortable with Idaho lawmakers saying, we're down with the climate change? That one. Number two, Mr. Paulson, Adam Paulson, convicted of vehicular manslaughter in the death of 24-year-old Maddie Dusky, back in prison, back in jail. Details and your reaction next. Join the conversation now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio.
Just as there's all of this fear-mongering that government is going to take over every corporation and government is going to take over every business or every form of production, we should be scared right now because corporations have taken over our government. And in my opinion, we should be wary of any entity in which both of those things are combined, whether it's through one way or the other. And that's why the emphasis in democratic socialism is on democracy. And it's not about, it's just as much a transformation about bringing democracy to the workplace so that we have a say and that we don't check all of our rights at the door every time we cross the threshold into our workplace. Because at the end of the day, as workers and as people of society, we're the ones creating wealth, not a corporate CEO. It's not a CEO that's actually creating $4 billion a year. It is the millions of workers in this country that's creating billions of dollars of economic productivity a year.
There we have it, the voice of socialism, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying that the workers have the rights. The workers should have the wealth. The workers. I don't know. It sounds like a replay of the Soviet Union to me. Before we get to your phone calls, traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio.
Channel 7's Eric Everett.
Back to the phones, and we go to Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. Just real quickly on Ocasio, the original name of the Russian Communist Party before Lenin changed it to the Communist Party Third International in 1919 was the Russian Socialist Workers' Party. So that's and the emphasis was on democracy. So I
Boy,
mean,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, that was the original party of Plotnikov, who was the founder of the Socialist Party in Russia. Now, getting to my main point about climate change, I'm surprised at the amount that their education systems even affected our legislators, that they're not that much spivvy in terms of either science or history. For one thing, so the Earth's climate, according to the fossil record, is always changing, is always in flux. We have wide fluctuations in climate over the eons. That's what's normal. I mean, none of these people have enough critical thinking skills to ask the simple question: what is normal? Normal climate. And the other thing I would pose is their ignorance of science is amazing to me too. Every one of these so-called models that are paid by government grants are looking for more government money. Don't take into account the most important factor in climate change is sun activity. What we do know about it is that when you have lower levels of sunspot activity in the cycle of the sunspots on the sun, when you have lower sunspot activity, there's less radiation goes to the Earth. We go through cooling periods of time, cooling cycles in time when sunspot activity drops off on the sun. None of these idiots, including our brilliant legislators, have ever considered this. And I was disappointed when our governor, who supposedly has a University of Idaho education, voiced the same thing. I mean, the lack of critical. I mean, it's bad enough that the average citizen, too many of our average citizens lack critical thinking skills or education or reading skills. But when it gets down to our governor and our legislators, that's scary.
Well, again, you got to consider the source with Rocky Barker, but the idea of, people sitting back and saying that, it's okay, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, and, why are they agreeing on this? Where's the line? Where's the repeal of the grocery tax? Where is anything with these guys?
Well, I'm afraid, I went to that Lincoln Day dinner, and you were there too. You saw the power structure of the establishment in full display down there. And, from IACI to Simplot to all the rest of them, the money in politics counts for everything. The money that gets to get you elected, the money, and for what, and basically it comes down to the money's the mother's milk, and the people aren't the members of the power elite in the Boise Swamp unless they got the money to command in terms of campaign funds. and that's why.
Well,
that's why
that sounds like you're agreeing with Ocasio-Cortez. I got to run, Hank, but thank you.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate that. Dennis in Middleton, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Dennis.
Hi, Kevin. First-time caller.
Welcome.
I just had a couple of comments regarding drunk driving. One, and the second comment is on global warming. My first comment, if the sentence is higher, don't you think the incidence would decrease? Like, let's just say that the first time you killed a person in your car because you were drunk, you had the death penalty. How many people out on the road after that would be driving drunk? That's my first comment. And then global warming, when I was growing up, there was an ice age coming back in the 60s. That's what they were saying. And then, but the Earth is a closed system, and so there's really no way it can run away. And even if the clouds did increase because of global warming, then there'd be less sun activity, and then the sun wouldn't be evaporating as much water at the same rate, and so there'd be less rain, and then the clouds would go away. So it's just, there's no way that it can be a runaway train, like they say.
I would agree with you on that. And the idea that we, again, if you repeat something long enough, it tends to be accepted as truth. Dennis, you call anytime. Please join the conversation.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Kevin Miller, coming up next, it is Dave Petso. Dave Petso? Who's Dave Petso? Well, thankfully, I've done a little research for Mr. Petso. We've got a couple things to talk a little bit about cars, a little talk about Venezuela, and talking about socialism and whether or not he's going to join the Stop Socialism Express. All that more next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
All right, here he is. Money Matters, Dave Petso, the Petso Center, Petso Financial, ready to roll with us here. I've been, over the weekend, I've been watching the shows, and you've heard of this thing in Austin, Texas, South by Southwest. It's a film festival and conference where it used to be about movies. Now it's getting political. So they had the mayor of South Bend, Indiana on, young guy, Afghani war veteran, talking about socialism. And he was making the compelling argument that, in Stockton, California, they're actually starting a pilot program where 100 residents will be receiving basic income from the city government, $500 a month, just for being a resident of Stockton, California.
Yep.
As someone who has lived and continues to live and espouse the American dream, your reaction?
No work, no worth. It's what that's my biggest problem right there. And we can go into the economics. There are many people that will disagree that the economic side of it is critically important. That you can't give people something and expect the society to work, because it won't work. People don't. You look at the inner cities, and that's exactly. Do you see people getting out of that mess? They don't very often. It's very, very rare that they actually get out. But I focus on the fact, too, that human beings aren't built to not work. We all need to have something to give us a sense of worth in our life, a passion, something that we're doing. And don't tell me it's because now I have enough money to pay for groceries that the artistic side of me. No, I just would sit around and smoke dope. I mean, it would just... That's what I think we're leading to, is playing video games and doing nothing all day long. That's the problem that I think we're going to have, and human beings will just simply suffer in that. It sounds like a great idea, but a vacation every day for your whole life is not a life.
Now, they've used the excuse that robots are going to replace us all as workers, so no one will have a job, therefore no one will have any income.
Yeah, they have, and maybe that's true 100 years from now, but it isn't true today, and I really don't know what the push is today for doing that. We have the lowest unemployment rate. Economists agree that we can't go this low, right? That was what we were told. 5% was full employment. We would have spiraling inflation. Well, here we are at, 3.8 and declining. And the idea that and there are more job listings than there are people looking for jobs out there. This is a very, very tight labor market. Not really the time to be trying a new, really great socialist experiment.
Dave Petso joining us here, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's continue to talk a little bit about the state of things, if you will. The president this week expected to unveil his budget, a 5% cut across most domestic spending programs. The reaction to this, and again, Larry Kudlow on Fox News Sunday stating that you have to be fiscally responsible, cutting some of these programs. 5% across the board doesn't seem like a lot, yet the usual suspects will probably have the usual hyperbolic reactions.
Well, most definitely. You remember on this week, clearly Republicans hate old people, and particularly children in tough situations. They hate them and want them all to just go away. So that's probably where we're focused. Can you believe, fill in the blank program is being slashed? And it won't be 5%, Kevin. It'll be 5% plus whatever was built into the budget for the increase. That's how they do it. In other words, if they have no increase, we don't say it that way. We call it a cut. That's the absurdity of government. If you hold something to where it is, that's considered a cut.
Dave Petzo joining us here, but again, you're going to say, well, what can we do? How can we move along all these social programs? How can we live without them? And we've gotten used to that, and we'll get back to that in a minute. First and foremost, locally, the local report here.
Yeah.
Albertsons opening up the world's largest Albertsons. A lot of buzz, people going to see it, saying, on Fairview and Meridian, saying, I need to go see the world's largest Albertsons. A lot of community pride. Your thoughts on Albertsons continuing to invest in its original market?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I tell you what, I hope that it works. My thoughts are they've got to try something. It's great. You can't just be a little local grocery store so people can pick up milk on the way home. You can't do that. They're all gone. And you have to have some kind of a niche, whether it's a place that people like to hang out. Yes, if you have the greatest location in the whole wide world, like they do at 16th and State, there's just no other grocery stores anywhere nearby. And so that's great and good for them. But you're not going to find that very many places, and you certainly can't run a corporation the size of Albertsons on your locations. So I do like the fact that they're growing and expanding and trying new things. I love this store over here on Broadway, but I'm behind the curtain, Kevin. I'm concerned because I don't know what the costs are to put this place in. I don't know what it costs them to take that strip mall and turn it into, a big old Albertsons with a parking lot. So it's an expensive building. It's gonna require quite a lot of traffic. I hope it goes well for them.
Well, let's delve further into this. One of the best podcasts I will tell you on in all of podcasting. It's called Business Wars.
I thought it was your podcast.
Thank you, Dave Petzo. That's one for the home team. When it's not related to my employer.
Okay.
It's called Business Wars, and it's about, they do Adidas versus Nike, Netflix versus Blockbuster. So let's delve into that on this theme.
Yeah.
Grocery wars. When you take a look at Albertsons, Fred Meyer, Winco, and others here in the Treasure Valley. Now, we had Rosars that didn't last very long, came in with a lot of promise.
Yeah.
But grocery stores, and Walmart for that matter, everybody has delivery now. Everybody has pickup, and they've taken it a step further where you can call people and they can come to your house and everything else of that matter. What do you make of this? Is this how, it's the, it's kind of like Amazon and Amazon with Whole Foods. What do you make of that with how it impacts how we get our groceries?
Yeah, I that's why I'm nervous. I would never want to be in that space. Honestly, if you'd ask me a space to, the old adage, right? If you if you want to be a millionaire, be a billionaire and buy an airline, right? You're going to lose a ton. And this one strikes me as the same type of a business right now. It is really cutthroat. But the problem that the Albertsons of the world are going to have is how do we compete against the monster companies, whether it's in Amazon, Whole Foods, but in particular in their space, it's Walmart. Walmart is just huge. And then if you want to try to dismiss one as not being as big as Walmart, you can. But Kroger is ridiculous. That's Fred Meyer and all the other brands. That's so much bigger than Albertsons. This is tough. It's a tough space. And as we always do, it's a great space because everybody needs to eat. They don't need to eat at that store, and I just don't see any other competitors coming up. So hopefully Albertsons can fill that niche. But it is a very, very difficult one. And again, I don't have any inside information here. I just think that it's a very difficult world for all retail right now.
You see, for most of us, we don't like change.
Nobody does.
Right. And for me, my favorite store is the 10 Mile Albertsons. Okay?
Right.
Same people there again.
You know
and again.
where your Kiana soup is.
Right.
Exactly.
It breaks my heart that I live in Star.
Yep.
And, so it's either Fred Meyer or Walmart. And I will tell you that even though Fred Meyer on Chinden and Linder, that's my Fred Meyer, great one. That's where the governor goes and Mrs. Otter and stuff. The former governor now. That's tough to say.
Yes.
Right. So you go there and you have kind of the same people. But at that Albertsons, and I would assume that at most Albertsons, you have people there that have been there forever. And for me, I go for the people.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I hate it when you go to some place.
You
and
go for the people.
I do. And because they know.
Well, you're actually a shopper kind of guy. You really do get out and go.
That's right. I don't believe in Diner Dash. I don't believe in delivery. I think that you have to go and you get your stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. You should, servant leadership. You don't go when you have people in their cars, and people that can make money off that, they're smarter than the rest of us.
All right.
But back to the point,
Yep.
I think, again, you lose that when you have these bigger corporations that, again, have to meet a certain red line when it comes
Yep.
to the economy and such. And you become not an individual, not Sally the checkout guy or Kevin the bagger that's been there for years. You become a number on a spreadsheet.
You do. That's absolutely true. And I think it's small business can, and Albertsons is too big where they don't have, where each store has to have similarities.
Right.
I get that. But I do think that it's a key thing when each store can be run to a degree by their general manager and dial it in. Get to know Kevin. He's a regular here. What can we do for him? It's the wow factor, if you will. There's a great thought process out there about how to wow customers and clients by thinking of them in a special way, a different way. And you can't do that as a group. You can only do that because, Kevin, you've been coming here forever, and
Right.
somehow we know it's your birthday, and then bam, they give you a birthday cake or something. That's a different kind of a feeling you're ever going to get. I hope that they can, because, Kevin, I don't think that they can compete on the big store. We can count numbers better than the big guys can.
Well, and you would think that they would have that advantage, but again, Albertsons is just not here in the Treasure Valley. It's everywhere, so you have to think of that. But the idea of building these stores and really just owning the local market.
Right. And I think that if they do it, or whatever markets they're in, own that market. Don't try to be everywhere. Just try to be where you can be big enough to do it.
All right, Dave Petzo, let's go to Bloomberg Business Week. I brought in some of my old issues. Peak car. We still drive 1.3 billion automobiles, but not for long. The mobility evolution is almost here. In other words, we're going to, Uber or Lyft or whatever you have will be the model where you just...
Trains.
Right. Not really trains. You know what I'm saying. That, again, if you want to go somewhere, you just tap the app and you go.
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yes, I do. I just don't think we're almost there. I think we're a ways to go. But millennials are already embracing that idea. But we've seen the initial blushes with it, if you will. I think Zipcar was one. There's others out there that try to get this where people share, but they're very, very expensive, and they haven't panned out. It's cheaper to rent a car for a day if that's what you want to do. So it's some of these things have already been tried and failed. But when we have autonomous cars, Kevin, there's no doubt our cities are going to look vastly different than they have in the past. There won't be big parking lots, and it is going to look different. But I don't think the time is now or for long. But in 10 years, I certainly see a big shift happening.
Well, let me share this story. After one too many snowstorms, Boston tech executive Larry Kim had it with shoveling out his car and struggling to find parking. Like you people in Boise.
Yes.
So in 2014, he ditched his Infiniti luxury sedan and began commuting by Uber and Lyft at an annual cost of as much as $20,000. Now, again, he's a big muckety-muck in Boston. He's making the money. $20,000 is maybe $20 to the rest of us. Quote, I would never go back to owning a car, says Kim, chief executive officer at Mobile Monkey, Inc., a Facebook Messenger marketing platform, who says he's recovered an hour a day by not driving. Your time is not free, right? Your time is worth more than $20 an hour. So in my case, why not spend $15,000 to $20,000 a year to get all that time saved?
Fair
Compelling
point.
argument?
Yes, it is. It is not completely compelling nowadays that we have podcasts and things like that you can do while you commute. You can learn so much. Now, if you're sitting back and listening to yahoos like us blabber back and forth, then maybe it isn't as well spent as making phone calls. But, people commute.
You're not helping us, create value here in our listenership.
But you understand my point. People are out there learning. If you're just sitting around singing to yourself for hours every day, maybe, just maybe, that isn't the best use of your time, and it would be better to sit in the back of an Uber and be making phone calls. So it depends on who you are and what you're doing. But I do enjoy the downtime, and I don't think you want to try to work every single second of every day. I don't think you have clarity. I don't think it really is the best use of your time. But an hour commute every day when you're having to concentrate, I understand what he's saying. His time is worth much more than that. I can't possibly disagree with it in full with his statement.
All right, much more next. You're listening to Kevin Miller, Dave Petzo, KIDO Talk Radio. Back with Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, Dave Petzo, what do you think as far as the president and his new budget, 5% cuts? How will that impact the markets, if any?
Oh, I think it would be great. Imagine that. Imagine government acting like any business would. We need to constantly be questioning where the spending is, constantly changing, evolving, and that's what that type of a thing causes. It's not saying we're only going to cut what I want to cut. We're cutting across the board, and it couldn't be more fair. It couldn't be better for government to actually have to come in and cut. For those people that are going to be screaming and yelling about it, or whatever program you're afraid is getting cut, think of the bigger picture, which is anything can be cut 5% without ruining it. So we need to go through and cut. And I wish they would do 5% this year, give it a couple years, and do another 5%. I think that would be fantastic for all of government to make them think about being more innovative, up to date, and to embrace technology for what the kind of cost savings it could have, Kevin.
Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk.
Mr. Pro.
All right, let's see if we can get Dave Petzo in trouble. The legislature continues to figure out how to pay for Medicaid expansion. Many people, including myself, say there should be a cap on it at $400 or $500 million.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Medicaid expansion and the danger, even though it has good intentions, of possibly pretty much crippling the state?
Correct, and I think good intentions is how and why we wind up with $20 trillion worth of budget deficits, right? And dump that on our kids. We have programs that don't work. We have government that doesn't work. Is all based on good intentions. I don't think people, other than the socialists, attempt to or have an ulterior motive to trying to ruin whatever is out there. Other than socialists, the rest of people, normal people, don't try to do that. And it is good intentions. But I'm very concerned, Kevin. Anytime you expand government, it just isn't. Why not expand it to another class of people? Why not get some more? There's more votes. That if we bump it up to 80,000, if we bump it up to 90,000, there's more votes there. 100,000. And, there is inflation. There is inflation out there. And if we put more people into the program, they'll be happy about it. And again, the costs explode. It's a great idea. Is it? I don't know how it's a great idea to have government paying for so many things for us.
Well, that's the scary part about it. Initially with Prop 2, it was supposed to be 60,000. Now it's 80,000, could be 120,000. Mm-hmm. And, the concept of free money. You saw the commercials. You heard the commercials. Hey, we're entitled to all this free money.
Yeah, I know. Free money. It's really amazing that people go, yeah, because it comes out of D.C. That's not our money.
Of course, on the other hand, if all of a sudden the funding goes from 90 to 10 to, let's say, 50-50, we couldn't handle that load.
Correct. Or, yeah, exactly. Or 90-10. What happens when they say the states have to pay 25%?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, all of a sudden our costs have gone up more than double. This is waiting to be a massive problem. It's nothing different, I think, than the high-tax states that when they changed tax reform in this last bill, and most people got a tax cut, high earners or middle high earners in high tax states. So the high tax states really took a hit, and people are moving fast out of there, because it really just covers up their overspending ways in those big states and those high tax states. Well, it's not really 10% because you can write off on your federal taxes. Well, you can't anymore, and that is a simple tax code change, Kevin.
Sure.
It's not even saying you got to pay a bigger percentage. So yeah, you get in bed with government, eventually you will get bit.
Words to live by. Dave Petzo, thank you.
Thank you always, Kevin. Sorry I was late today.